Hey everyone, just a quick heads up. This episode is best experienced on a computer. We'll be sharing our screen and walking through some live examples using the Sling software. So you'll get the most value by watching along visually. If you're listening on audio, no worries. We'll do our best to describe what we're doing. But for the full experience, definitely check it out on YouTube or your desktop browser. Let's dive in.
What's up, boys?
What's going on, guys?
Hey,
How are you?
Happy
How
Monday.
you guys? Happy Monday. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Keeping busy.
Keeping busy is good.
Doing great. A lot of momentum, a lot happening, a lot of companies following their financials. So there's a lot to look at, to understand, to evaluate.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think it is? Do you think more liquidity is coming into the market? Do you think, the public?
Yeah, well, you have a couple things on that front, right? Well, one is, all the financials are due, right? Most of the companies are kind of fiscal year end guys, right? So 3/31, they're supposed to get it done within 12/31 guys supposed to get it done within the 90 days. A lot of it goes on extension. A lot of them are late. I think Palantir actually, which is a big company, just reported. I don't know what it's like in the aftermarket. I didn't have a chance to take a look at it, but I think their growth increased in the quarter. But yeah, so a lot of companies are doing what they're supposed to do, providing disclosure, which is what we want. We want disclosure and want to be able to read that disclosure pretty quickly and simplify it as much as we can, in order to make the right decisions for us, for our friends, for our family, and so on. So I think that, and then I think liquidity wise, I'm seeing it pick up in certain places, whether it's guys that have been sitting on the sidelines or people that have been kind of a lot of uncertainty, right? You gotta, this is not a political place to be at all whatsoever, but when you have a guy who's running the country that, pretty much does what he wants to do, there's a lot of uncertainty. It could be good, it could be bad.
No, it's for sure bringing in liquidity, right? And liquidity brings in more day traders, and day traders bring more liquidity. So it's kind of like a cycle that just happens, and that's why we're seeing the ups and downs, because people want to enjoy those quick bumps.
And I think more leniency too, because I think now that he's in office, there's a lot more kind of wild west situations, right? People, I was told the other day by somebody, I can't remember which brokerage firm, but one of the bigger ones. Again, don't quote me. I don't know if it's a TD, Fidelity, or whatever. They're allowing their retail clients to buy penny stocks again. So
wow, that's huge.
It's big.
That's huge, yeah.
That shows, right? And then you have companies like Webull, right? Webull went public on a crazy valuation, stock ran and whatnot. They let, it's like another Robinhood kind of situation, right? So I think there's a lot of opportunity that might come into play because of the liquidity.
And you also have to be aware that whatever companies thought was going to happen in 2025 a year or a year and a half ago is probably not going to happen now. So companies talking about it, they usually talk about it on their annual report, on their quarterly report, or just an interim kind of an 8K type of situation, right? Just informing the investment public about what's going on. So you need to be aware of that, because you may have read the 10K last year or even the quarterly for quarter 3 last year, and the company said that something was going to happen, but maybe now in the 10K that was released 2 months ago, a month ago, now the company is saying something different. So you need to be aware of changes in the narrative, in the situation, in the economics of everything.
Which is a perfect segue into our keyword search, right? Being able to follow through, right? Being able to be aware of what they have within those statements.
Yeah, exactly. And like we spoke last week, like tariffs is a big word, right? China is a big word. So if you wanted to track, I think right now it's a very good moment, because as you said, the annual filings are coming in. So you're going to see a lot of companies starting to talk about what's going on, about what their plans are. So right now is a really good time to be aware of that. Like, if you wanted to know when a company mentions X, you can know, right? Or for example, I'm gonna put in a real example, right? So there's an investor that I really like, very good, Bill Ackman. I've followed him since I started to get involved in investing, and right now he just finalized the acquisition of a majority controlling part of a company called Howard Hughes Holdings. I think it's a company. HHH is a ticker. They were going back and forth. The negotiations were there, but they didn't really
He's
follow
an
through.
he's an activist though, right? He's one of those guys that comes in and fucking takes over and
Yeah, yeah,
wants a seat on the
exactly.
board and whatever. He's the one that did what, Herbalife, or what did he do?
Herbalife, yeah.
He
Him and
shorted.
Carl Icahn, yeah. He was shorting Herbalife, and Carl Icahn was buying the stock to kind of like get into him. There was a beef between them, so it was a very fun story.
We listened to a podcast about that once, right? Wasn't there like a podcast or something about it? Or
I watched an Amazon Prime movie that talks about
Yeah, I watched that too.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a documentary. It was actually very good, very educational. Like it was fun. The guy lost $1 billion. I don't know how funny it was for him, but for me to watch, I find it very interesting.
But you know
Fun.
what?
You guys watch those things about those smart investors, and I watch a movie like Gold with Matthew McConaughey, which talks about a Toronto Canadian exchange shell that found gold and minerals in Nigeria, and the guy raised money around it.
Hey, that's
It's
a
a
good
great movie,
That's
by
a
the
good
way. I don't know
movie
if you've
too.
seen
Like
it.
that's a really
What's
good
the
movie
name?
too.
Called Gold by Matthew McConaughey with Matthew
Def-
McConaughey. It's a great movie.
I'm definitely adding it to my list as we
You
speak.
have to.
I love
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey, and I love movies about penny stocks. So, yeah, check both boxes.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah, it's out of 2017. I'm looking. Great movie. You guys gotta watch it.
Love it.
But back to like Bill. Go ahead.
Yeah, so back to
Buddy
Bill Ackman. So the acquisition was kind of like in a standstill for the last month or so, and I like the guy, so I bought stock for myself because what he wants to do basically is turn Howard Hughes Holdings into the next Berkshire Hathaway. Like he wants to turn that company, which is just a real estate development company, into a holding company that invests in different types of businesses that, of course, bring cash. So I like the guy, I like what he does. So I bought some stock and I need to be aware of what's going on. So today in the morning, they finally closed on the transaction. So if you look at Howard Hughes Holdings, they put out an 8K talking about the transaction and about it being finalized. And I think he bought like $400 million at, I think he bought it at $100 a share and the stock is trading at $70. So,
He bought it at $100 a share,
yeah.
and it's trading at 70.
Yeah, because he really believes in what he was.
So he bought it at a premium.
Yeah, so it's really good. But
That's a great sign. That's a great sign for
an investor like me. Yeah, the stock went up like 4% today. But I got an alert on my email saying, hey, there was a mention of Bill Ackman in a filing, and you open the filing, and then of course I see that it's from Howard Hughes Holdings and all of that. So that's the kind of stuff that.
And he owns more than 10% of that company?
Yeah, it's a controlling block. Yeah, he's gonna
Amazing.
He bought a
So he
controlling
cannot-
block of the company at $100 a share.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Straight common, preferred common.
common stock.
How many board seats?
I don't remember that, to be honest. Like I don't have it on the top of my
Wow.
mind.
Oh,
But
that's definitely a great sign. Like retail investors, like that's what they need to look for.
Yeah,
those type
exactly.
of signs, right? Like if you can buy at a lower price than Bill Ackman, you're in a good shape.
yeah, but for example, let's say that the 8K was out and it said that the transaction didn't go through, then that's my signal to sell as an investor. So I think that's every day you find out more and more reasons why at least us we find the tool very useful in situations like this. And this, of course, this is for me. Like I'm talking about my personal portfolio. So
Wow, with our money, you don't really care? Is that what you're trying to say?
it's a different strategy. It's a different strategy.
Guys buying calls on whether something's gonna happen in the game tomorrow.
Hey, you
I
know
love
what? You make fun of it, but I've called correctly every decision from the Fed the last year or so.
Good. I'm excited to
So
see. So wait,
if we
the
can
Fed
make money
meetings are
off of
when?
it,
On
it's good.
Wednesday?
Yeah, on Wednesday. I think
And
it's
the bet that we took was that they're not going to cut rates.
they're not gonna cut. They can increase and we pay and we get paid, but they cannot cut. Which they're not going to, of course. It's not gonna happen. Right now, with what's going on, they're not gonna cut rates. It's crazy.
I agree that there's not going to be a rate cut in the near future, in my opinion. But again, this is just an opinion. It's not a financial advice, but I kind of like agree with Paulo. Yeah.
If anything, just do the inverse of what we do. You might be better off.
That's for sure. That's for
That's
sure.
great. You were able to put that bet or that I guess trade on Interactive.
On interactive brokers, yeah. It's like it's so funny. It's called forecast markets, which is a very fancy way of saying a bet, a prop bet.
Yeah.
So interactive broker has it. I don't think Robinhood has it, but there's an app called or website. I think it's called Kalshi, which is kind of the biggest forecast market companies in the US at least. They're really good. You can bet on whatever you can think of. You can bet on whether, I think I saw earlier today, you can bet on whether 2025 is going to be the warmest year in history or not.
Yeah, it's like
in
poly
terms of
market. So
temperature.
Kelsey approved, like you can do the bets from the US. Poly market, you cannot bet if you're a US citizen. So I think, Paulo, you can because you're in Mexico, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
with interactive brokers, yeah.
Incredible, guys. This was a great opening. I think today what we want to do is kind of like walk through, kind of like catch up for where we stopped last week. And maybe, Paulo, you can share your screen and walk us through, what type of alerts you got for the keyword you entered last week. What did you notice? What did you not notice? What were the good signs, the bad signs, the
I'm
ugly
really
signs?
interested. Yeah, really
Me too.
interested on that one thing we mentioned, which I don't know if anybody heard of or whatnot, but it's called Bitcoin. It's the best thing we talked about. I'd love to see what came up with that Bitcoin company thing.
Yes.
Oh, man.
It's brand
it's not
new
a thing,
cutting
it's
edge
a thing.
technology.
Yeah. And I think
Considering the thing, it actually went up too. It's at like 90-something thousand, right?
95,000. Yeah.
I mean, it's up today, but it's down from what $100,000 it was like a couple of months ago, or like
It's
half a
up
year
from
ago.
$1,000 5-7 years ago. So
Hey,
no.
it's all about
Hey.
how you see it. It's all about the time frame. Like if you look
Listen,
at it this week, you're
Michael
very happy.
Saylor is just, he's buying nonstop at any price. So, that's a signal there,
The definition of a bubble.
people can follow. I mean, Michael Saylor called a lot of good things in the past, If you listen to his interviews from back in the days, how he talks about Apple, he actually nailed it like 1-to-1. There was a video of him, an interview of him in 2012, and he's like, people who selling Apple stock right now, they're just retarded. They're stupid. Like, I don't understand. And he kind of like explained why it's a stupid idea. And like, if you listen to this 13 years later, which is today, you kind of like, wow, this guy is a genius. Like, I'll put it in the show notes and I'll send you guys to later to watch. It's very awesome.
Yeah,
So,
MicroStrategy is a whole different conversation. We could talk hours about what MicroStrategy is doing. It's really interesting what they're doing, actually.
completely agree. The convertible notes and all of that stuff, that's very interesting. But I don't think, I think for now we should kind of like focus on the alerts that we created. I think we're gonna have a super interesting conversation around that. I'm excited.
Definitely. Let me share with you so we can just pick it up where we left it. All right. So this is where we left it last week, I believe.
723 alerts.
What?
That Bitcoin, a lot of people talk about Bitcoin. I'll tell you that. So like, let's go very quickly, right? So in terms of the keywords, right? So we can go over here and see what we put in last week, right? So we put in a couple of words just to see what happened. Funnily enough, now that I see over here, it says 0 mentions of Warren Buffett. So maybe it's too early to take into consideration his retirement.
Right. You believe that too? Fuck.
Very sad.
I mean, the guy's 94.
Dude, I love
give him
how
a break.
the most important thing that everybody thought that he said was, I am not selling anything. Everything is being gifted.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I'm sorry for his kids and grandkids that I think they're not gonna get anything out of that. They're gonna have to work for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we see here, Paulo?
So we can see that we got a lot of hits on a lot of different keywords, and it of course it makes sense, right? For example, phase three, FDA, we're talking about biotech companies, we have a lot of hits. Bitcoin, we have, of course, a lot of hits.
It's interesting that Bitcoin has been, we have 3 times more large than Ethereum. That can tell you, that can give you some sort of like maybe an indicator about which one you should go with. I don't know.
I think somebody's biased over here.
I'm actually, I own more ETH than Bitcoin, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. Most of my personal portfolio is Ethereum. Just because when I first bought back in 2016, I bought 50-50, but Ethereum made me more money than Bitcoin, like as far as growth. So that's why right now I have more Ethereum than Bitcoin in dollar valuation.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
this will give you an idea of, what's going on. Like maybe if you start getting more hits from Ethereum, it's being mentioned more. I know that for publicly traded companies in the US using Ethereum, for example, it's a tricky situation because the founder is Russian, right? So US publicly traded companies being involved with Ethereum, it's not a good look. So it kind of makes sense. And Bitcoin,
But what an indicator that I will track is maybe every week see the ratio between the notification on Bitcoin to Ethereum. And when we see that starting to grow, that's maybe the time to start this, because it means that the public market is more interested in Ethereum. But kind of like, again, this is another way to use this tool. Like it's very, and I was just thinking about it while we speak, because I'm looking at the data and I'm kind of making idea and suggestions. Yeah.
The same time frame and 3 times the amount.
Yeah. And maybe next week we're gonna follow and it's gonna be 50. And then maybe the next week it's gonna be 75 to 1, right? Like 75%, 0.75 to 1. And then, maybe that can be an indicator where you should buy and sell Ethereum. But yeah, just a point of something to think about.
Yeah,
because for the past year, Ethereum wasn't performing well compared to Bitcoin. So, and we know, again, we don't know, but like we project that at some point, it will catch up. When it's going to be this point, I think it's going to be when people are going to start talking about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's kind of one of the things that you can start doing with this, trying to kind of tracking what's going on. So right here, we have a lot of hits because, we have very popular words. So FDA, of course, Bitcoin, Pfizer, the big banks, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, of course, AI, the hottest topic right now. It's going to get a lot of hits. But if you start looking into more, smaller, kind of more niche keywords, I think that's where you start to unlock more value. For example, let's say a Maxim Group that we're tracking. And it's an investment bank, but it's not as big as the Morgan Stanleys, as the JP Morgans, as the Goldman Sachs. So it's a very small bank, investment bank for smaller companies. So each one of those 11 hits, in my opinion, gets more value because you get involved, you kind of know what's going on with smaller companies where maybe what's going on has a bigger impact on the stock, on the company, right? So
I would also be interested in trying to do something regarding the clinical trials, right? Trying like phase 1, phase 2 versus phase 3, and then kind of seeing, what opportunities come out of that if I'm a biotech investor.
yeah, like for example, right now we only are tracking phase 2, but we could start tracking phase 2 and phase 1. Just off the top of my mind, I would think that you have a lot more companies mentioning phase 1 than phase 3 because not a lot of companies get to phase 3.
Correct, and it depends on what kind of valuation of a company life cycle and clinical trial cycle you want to get involved with as an investor. Again, the whole phases and whatnot, I get confused every time. But there's 1B, one's for toxicity, one's for mice, one's in a petri dish, and then one's in, and they go to humans at some point and stuff like that. So, different life cycles, different type of investments. It'd be cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. And for example, I don't know if you guys know, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. It's Martin Shkreli. He's a big
Yeah.
guy that
Strictly.
I'm not sure how it's mentioned, but it's that guy that went into prison for
Yeah, he's because he was overcharging for the drug, for the
Yeah.
diabetes drug or whatever, for the
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that guy, since he's been out of jail, he does a lot of live streams talking about biotech companies because he used to run a fund that invested in biotech companies, either buying or shorting ones that were going to fail their phase 1, 2, or 3 trials with the FDA. So he knows a lot about that kind of stuff, and he does live stream talking about how to read a phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3 report to kind of understand or trying to know if the company's gonna be able to follow through and get approval or not. And it's interesting to know that kind of content if you're interested, if you're a biotech investor. If you pair it alongside this, that you can see, okay, you know what, I'm only going to invest in companies that are in phase 2, right? So maybe if you go to phase 3, the stock price is higher, the valuation is higher, and of course, the potential for return is much lower than if you invest in companies that are still in phase 2. So if you look at that and you say, hey, I already know how to read a phase 2, I already know how to interpret, I already know how to determine if it's good or bad, then you can start tracking which companies are mentioning their phase 2. So you can take a look at their report and determine if you want to invest or not, if you want to buy or you want to short, if that's what you do. Or maybe you only invest in phase 3 companies and you can just screen for phase 3 companies or phase 1 or whatever you're looking for if you're a biotech investor.
This is actually one of my favorite tools because there's so many ways you can use it, like for so many different indicators and tracking, this is actually a very, the more we speak about it, the more ideas I have of how actually, like what angle you can do in order to use it the proper way.
Yeah, exactly. And like over here, we only have, how many alerts we have. And this is where we add it or take it away. But if we go over here to the notifications, here we can look for the key. Let's remove this. Let's only look at keyword matches. All right. So we can see that Morgan Stanley was mentioned in a filing for AB portfolios. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a fund, maybe it's a company. Or let's look at Bitcoin. Let's see who's mentioning Bitcoin.
You can search on the top, I believe, too.
That's so good.
There you go.
So yeah, we're going to look.
Here, MicroStrategy, of course.
Of course, it's
but let's look at one of the other companies that mention Bitcoin in there. Maybe open one of their filings.
Oh, Cantor Equity Partners is good. So let's do this one. This one's interesting. Hyperscale Data Inc. So you click over here, your filing, it's going to open the filing, which right now it's an S1 or registration statement.
I know this company. How do I know this company?
So look, we just opened the filing.
Shoot, Isusa. Oh, and Target. Wow. All our friends are in this.
Huh?
All our friends are in this deal.
Well, look, this is interesting, and we're kind of figuring out what's going on. So
that's how I know. Okay, I know. Yes. Okay.
So if you wanted to figure out what the company is doing, why are they buying Bitcoin? Maybe it's the strategy, just like MicroStrategy, just buying Bitcoin and that's it, and call it a day. Maybe.
So just because I'm interested now, do a Control F and put in Bitcoin.
So let's do Bitcoin.
Well, it's mentioned 278 times. Okay, so that's what they do. So they do Bitcoin mining.
Bitcoin miner operation present number. Yeah, they're highly
reliant on the price of Bitcoin, subject to risk related to government with Bitcoin. So it's a Bitcoin company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
they're mining. Yeah, it's a miner. It's a Bitcoin mining company.
It's a Bitcoin mining company.
Right.
So that's good to know. That's good to know what the company does. Maybe you're not into.
It's funny how when the price of Bitcoin goes up, all of those companies are going into Bitcoin mining. It's the easiest way to kind of like get attention from the investors.
Do you want to see what's even more funny? Even more funny is if you go ahead and you plug this into like the liquidity screener real quick.
Let's do that. That's
Go
amazing.
to
That's a
the
great
liquidity
idea.
screener real quick. And put in hyperscale.
What was the ticker?
Just write in hyperscale. You can write it in.
Hyperscale. Hyperscale data. Let's look at
Do 1 year. Do 1 year.
do 1 year. All right. So
All right.
let's
Just look at the side there, month 1 versus month 2.
let's go. Let's do May 1 until let's go over here to let's do May 1, just so it's a full year.
Yeah, it's fine. Live
So
split by month.
Look
Yeah, great.
at the last month. And that's the month of May.
So 5 days.
That's 5 days. Not even today's Monday. So that's what? That's Thursday,
Look at
Friday, and
2 days.
Monday.
It's 2 days.
Wow.
2 days of trading. Wow.
And look at December as well.
Look how it went up
December,
from $2 to $6 almost.
December, they're also trading a lot of stock over
Let's
there.
do the daily. I'm interested to see what's going on. Yeah, it's it's fuck. So wild. Let's do
You have crazy days. We should look at what on those days, on the crazy days, what was the press release that kind of like triggered the pump.
Yeah, and this, if
Because
you're
you can see like week 24 was an insane week compared to the previous ones. And then, yeah, that's very interesting.
maybe they put out a press release, right? Or maybe Bitcoin went up that day. That could also be.
It's probably more like a press release, in my opinion, if I have to guess. But yeah, I'm sure they're also related. Like I'm sure they're moving with Bitcoin. Those are most miners, Yeah, I'm invested in a few gold miners from back in the days, and you can see how the price of the miner is very correlated with the price of gold.
Guys, the stock today is up 465%. Something happened today.
Today?
We traded 300 million shares today.
300 million shares. Wow, that's crazy.
Something happened today. And all they came
You
out
know what?
saying
Let's add it over to the company alerts.
100%. I want to follow this company.
So let's.
it opened at $3, and it's trading right now as we speak. There's a bid at 717.
So a bid, not an offer, a bid.
Yeah, somebody want to buy the stock.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting exercise to see what's going on, see what's.
They came out with a news release today talking about full year guidance. And they did $25 million in revenues for Q1, and they're providing full year guidance of anywhere between 115 and 125 million. Talks about AI.
Of course. AI and Bitcoin mining.
So it's everything.
The perfect recipe.
AI, machine learning, Bitcoin. That's
yes, exactly.
the Holy Trinity.
I love it.
So,
all right, Paolo, what else did we learn this week?
Okay, so let's go back to the notifications and let's look at what else came up when we searched for Bitcoin. So, a lot of companies like ProShares Trust, it's one of the new Bitcoin ETFs. Cantor Equity Partners is as well a fund manager. So, some hits might be interesting, some may be more than others. But that's kind of what happens when you look for a very hot topic like Bitcoin. So VanEck VIP Trust, I think it's another one of the ETFs. Grayscale is one of the first Bitcoin ETFs that got approved. So, a lot of hits. And if you go over what other, we also did more against town, Yeah, so again, Morgan Stanley, you get a lot of hits. The 424B2 filings are Morgan Stanley filing a registration statement. So, a lot of companies are talking about it. Morgan Stanley's putting out some press releases themselves, which of course are going to be mentioned. But this is kind of where we get the value. Or let's look for let's look for AI, another one of the crazy ones. So if we do AI, I think it's searching for everything that has AI combination on it. Yeah, like over here. So let's look at this one. A 6K is a periodic report, a news release kind of situation. So let's see what it says. So here, EVAX, a vaccine clinical stage biotech company in developing AI immunology powered vaccines. I don't know what the hell that is. I don't know if you guys kind of have an idea of what that is, but over here you have a biotech company mentioning AI.
You know what I've learned recently that you can do? You can
What?
copy this text right here. Go on to ChatGPT or Google Gemini, and you can say, "Hey, please simplify the following for me." Plug it in. It'll give you 3 freaking sentences of dumbing it down to you exactly what you need it to be.
And by the way, this is a feature that we're working on in the future. Is basically we're going to have the AI already plugged in to our system to kind of like summarize the reports for retail investors. Like reading an S1 is not an easy task. It's not an easy task even for experienced investors, right? Reading filings in general, they complicate it purposely in order for the retail investors not to understand what the fuck they're talking about and to kind of like distract them from the main points. So with the help of AI, we can actually make this much more simple. And this is the next feature we're going to launch very, very soon.
Be great if you put like a button right there. Dumb it down for me. Boom.
Yeah.
I think it's already going to do it automatically in the emails, but also you can kind of like ask it to be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter.
Or if you want to customize it, if you want to pull something else out of it and stuff like that.
Exactly. Maybe next to it, there is going to be a button that says, which grade do you want explanatory end? If you're a first grader or if you're an MBA, and then based on that, it's going to kind of like down it down. So this is also something we are actually working on.
Yeah, that's huge.
Do you really give a shit? Click.
Do you really give a shit? I love it.
Yeah, I think that's huge. That's huge. Reading through 10Qs, it's a pain in the ass. It's so hard. It takes so much time. So if you can just summarize it, it's gonna save you hours and hours of, just reading and give you the information right there. So I think that's gonna be huge. That's huge.
Amazing. All right, Paulito, what else?
What's cool about this is, of course, we have the keywords over here, but we also get it on the emails as well. So let's see which one. It's this one, right? So this is what I got in my email, 2nd of May.
Hold on, I got a different question real quick. I'm sorry. I'm still in my head spinning. Can you find a borrow so we can short this fucking Grayscale company? This thing went to $7 today, $8. It's going fucking down the next 3 days.
I completely agree, and you can see it based on their liquidity. Go back to the liquidity scanner. Let's see, kind of like let's figure out, their try to see some,
Keep it like that. Just do daily real quick. Just the way it is.
It's just the daily for a month.
Correct.
So you see that after they come.
If you go and go back to month, if you go to month, you'll see it actually includes today.
Yeah.
So, because today is when that traded like that. Literally today. 300 million shares at a fucking $6 VWAP.
So what do we see here?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of liquidity. If you wanted to short this thing, you could. Like, look at the VWAP. Let's go over daily. So
correct.
Look at the VWAP on Friday. It was $1.40, and I think it closed today at what was it, $7?
Trading right now after hours. If I'm looking at a level 2 right now, I'm seeing a 713 bid.
So let's look at the last year and see what happened to the stock after pump days like this, because usually there is a lot of returning patterns. Basically, when a pump stocks like that in a crazy way, usually a few days after there is a calm down.
Ashes.
I would call it.
Yeah.
So let's see when it happens for the past year. What was the consequences? So let's scroll down and try to look for crazy days like this.
So like here,
Yes.
March 3rd. It's not even that long ago.
Right. It's 2 months ago.
2 months ago, they took it from
$3. No.
it's
No. The price didn't went up that much. The liquidity, there was a liquidity thing that the increase is in the liquidity, not in the price.
Yeah, but then it just collapsed to $2, and then you go back, you go
To
up
$1. Yes, that's absolutely right. And now today it's pumping to 7. So I believe it's going to be back to 2 and 1 in probably no time.
Okay, you keep going back down. It's at $4, $5.
There's probably a lot of people converting. Let's look at the dilution. It's a Nasdaq company or
NASDAQ.
It's a NASDAQ.
Let's look at the dilution tracker here.
Let's hyperscale data. Did I click at? Oh, sorry. Well, let's look at the table.
I agree.
What's going on? It hasn't diluted that much, no?
Well, that looks like it did. That looks like they might have did a
reverse.
A reverse split, yeah.
A reverse.
November, they probably did a reverse split.
Yeah.
And then as of April 22nd, it's showing that there's 1.3 million outstanding.
Somebody is converting.
1.5
Someone is converting. Look in January, and then January 15, and then April 17. Somebody got more shares. Somebody is converting and selling, in my opinion, if I have to guess.
No. And look, it looks like they did a reverse. So if they did a reverse, it's probably because we haven't been following the stock for too long, so we don't know. But
Paulo, explain what the reverse split.
What? Sorry?
What is the reverse split?
So pretty much a reverse split is just decreasing the number of shares outstanding by combining the two, like a set amount of shares into a smaller amount of shares. So let's say that you want to do a 2-for-1, a 1-for-2 reverse split. So you have 2 shares that now you're going to combine them into one. So what that does to the price, let's say that you have a company that its price is 50 cents. Let's do it 50 cents. And you do a 1-for-2 reverse split. Now, instead of having 2 shares that are worth 50 cents each, you have 1 share that is worth $1. So that's what a reverse split does. And companies do that because they they do it because they need to comply with NASDAQ rules. So NASDAQ requires companies to have at least $1 bid for them to remain listed on the exchange.
Well, the NASDAQ's trying to implement whatever they can to stop companies from doing reverse splits, only so they can keep their minimum bid requirements. That's been like a trick that people have been using, people have been doing. But every time you're doing a reverse stock split, you're pretty much, just as you mentioned before, right? You're splitting it up, right? They're getting the same piece or whatnot, but then what happens? Dilution right away.
Yeah,
starts all over again. Your market cap is small, and the float is small. There's not enough shares in the market. You have to issue more shares. It's a game of it's like musical chairs at the end of the day.
Yeah,
that's why stock price is usually dropping after a reverse stock split, and this is why usually stocks are going up after a regular split, right? When Tesla is taking the price from 1,000 to 200, now more retail investors can jump into the game, even though the valuation of the company, the market cap hasn't changed, but more retail investors can jump in now, and that's why it makes it more attractive to companies, and this is what to investors, and this is why investors are actually jumping in really quickly after a split. But the reverse split actually do the complete opposite.
It can, right? I mean, if it's a really good company and they're doing it for the right reasons, it's something else. If they're doing it just to keep minimum bid price for NASDAQ purposes, then that's not the right way. You know, a lot of retail investors, day traders, funds, institutions, or whatnot, you'll see when a company files a 14C, right, a proxy. In order, so most companies need to do a proxy, right? They have to send out notification that they're going to have a meeting, they're going to vote on it, and so on in order to do it. Most people, when that happens and they put a date out there, people are getting out of that stock before that happens. They're not waiting to see how is this going to trade post reverse split.
Yeah, and NASDAQ doesn't like it because, of course, you know, they force companies to comply with the minimum dollar bid rule, but NASDAQ doesn't like it because it's an artificial price. Like, it's not because the company
Being
is
engineered, it's a financial engineer.
Yeah, it's like I own 2 shares that are worth 50 cents. My total holding is $1. So if you do a reverse, now I only own 1 share that's worth $1. It didn't really change. The dollar still remains the same. So the company's value doesn't increase. It's just, you know, shares are smaller, the outstanding is smaller. And then it's, as you said, it's engineered, it's artificial, and NASDAQ doesn't like it. So that's, and companies, you know, they abuse this a lot. Like, you see companies with crazy reverse splits, like 1 for 300 just to comply with the minimum dollar bid. But NASDAQ is cracking down on it. I don't think that's going to be a practice that it's common going forward, I think.
Completely agree.
It's good and bad. You know, it's good and bad. As you know, some companies are going to be delisted. Some companies should be delisted. If we're being honest, there are companies that shouldn't be on NASDAQ. But at the end of the day, it penalizes companies that may just be going through a rough patch. Maybe they just need a couple of more months to recover, and everything's going to be fine. And now they're not going to have the chance to do that. So it's a double-edged sword. We'd have to see what happens. But, you know, going back to Hyperscale, we can see that the company has been diluting. And if we go into their filings, which
almost 40%, like 35% since the beginning of the year, that's an insane dilution.
yeah,
And if we go deeper in the filings, we can kind of understand if it was for the right reason or for the wrong reasons. If I have to guess, it's probably for the wrong reason, just because what the patterns I see here. But again, it's we can easily go to the filings and figure out if they raise new money or is it old money that is being converting and diluting the company. So that's very important to kind of like to understand.
yeah. And so now that we have this precedent, that's why I added it over here. So to the company alerts. So next week when we revisit, we can see what happened. And maybe you're right. Maybe they're just converting some old convertible debt that they have outstanding, and that's bad for the company. Or maybe they're
actually, it's not always a bad thing for the company, because sometimes it's good to clean the balance sheet, and that's the only way to do it if the company doesn't have cash on hand. So just to kind of like correct myself in my earlier comment, I don't think it's always a bad sign. Sometimes the CEO just want to clean up the balance sheet, and that's a good thing for the company, and that's the only way. So it's kind of like also understand what are the terms of the conversions, and as long as they're not like, you know, going to take the stock super down. Again, I don't know. This is the first time I'm kind of like looking into this company, but kind of like this is what I feel based on my experience, my reference experience, my previous reference experience from this time doing this.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of what we know what happens, but who knows? You know, each company is its own beast. So maybe they're doing it for a good reason, maybe not. We don't know. We'll have to
I'm excited to see next week's filings and next week's alerts.
Yeah, maybe they just did a good offering. And you know, I think right now when pumps happen, it's a very good time for companies to raise equity, because you know, instead of, let's say that the stock was worth, let's say $1.50, I think it was worth, and they sell 1 million shares, they're going to raise $1.5 million. But now that the stock ran to $7, if they raise the same million shares, they get 7 million. So, you know, when stocks pump, it's a very good time for companies to raise equity. So maybe now we're going to see some type of filing, some type of registration, some type of whatever, an 8K, a news release, a press release that the company raised money, and that could actually be good for them. That's a good reason to dilute themselves. But we'd have to see. Like we have to see next week what happens with this company. Maybe they don't do anything. That could be a possibility.
I'm already very excited for next week episode.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well.
Should we wrap it up, or there is anything else you want to kind of like walk us through from what you learned this week?
Let's just see this. I think I saw over here. One of the companies that we were tracking, SMX, they filed a 6K, which is similar to an 8K for a US based company. So let's see what happened. I mean, we don't know what happened. We haven't seen it until now, but we got the alert. So let's see. This was filed 7 hours ago.
7 hours ago. Yeah.
7 hours ago, right? So if we go over here to the filing, let's see. The results of an extraordinary shareholder meeting. It was held on Friday. So let's see what happened. Look, this is over here. This what it looks to be a is it a split or is not a split? Let's see. Each ordinary shares of $4.7 in the capital be subdivided into one ordinary share of whatever number this is, and 470 billion?
That's a billion, yes.
That's
no, that's
billion,
a trillion. That's a trillion.
That's a trillion new deferred shares in capital of the company. So we don't know what this means. We'd have to go and look into the history of the company right now. So it seems like they're creating a new class of shares, which are called the new deferred shares, whatever that is. So we'd have to look further into this. But companies authorize share capital. Yeah, so it looks like they're reorganizing just the structure of the legal structure of the shares. So
and as a retail investor, that's a very important information. So you really want to be on the top of it, and you really want to understand what it means. Why are they reorganizing? The why, I think it's more important than the how, right? Like, what is the motive behind it? Why are they doing that? That's when you can actually get a good indication of what's going to happen with the stock and with the company.
Yeah, look, like just looking at this is very interesting. As a special resolution, the constitution of the company be amended by inserting a new article, which says that directors may consolidate and or divide all or any of the company's classes of shares as they see fit.
Wow.
So what does as they see fit mean? Like, are they going to be able to do it without having to go through shareholder approval? Is that what it means? Because if it's the case, then it's actually not good for the retail investor.
I would stay away if that's the case.
Yeah, like companies that have directors that have these type of powers in the companies and a constitution of the company is usually bad for retail investors. You're losing control, which is part of the attractiveness of owning shares, right? A share gives you the right to participate in decisions and corporate actions of the company. So if the directors are taking that away from you, that's not good. That's not good. That means that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. So this, if you ask me, I mean, we haven't been following the company long enough to know if it's good or bad, but at a first glance, this is not good. The rest of the resolutions, you would have to see individually, but this one, I don't like it. And what they say over here, we can see is that they were approved. Every single resolution that the board proposed was approved. So,
Guy alone, that's the name of the scroll down.
Guy alone, yeah, that's the CEO.
Yeah.
So, it's important for a retail investor to know this, and of course, this very well could have been an annual report. of the company. This, happened to be a current report. And
You know, these guys are in Ireland.
Yeah.
Yeah, most companies, especially companies that come in public from like foreign companies, a lot of them are in Ireland for the tax purposes.
Oh yeah, Ireland has a good tax haven.
Yeah, Apple, and big companies,
Oh,
Google, I think. Yeah.
I got something to talk to you about.
Write it down.
Level.
Write it down. I'm excited.
Alright.
Awesome,
Yeah, so-
Paulito. What else did you learn this week?
So I think I think we covered a lot today, and I think we got a lot more to cover next week from this.
I'm already excited to see what's going to happen with the new company we added. That's going to be very fun, and that's for very educational. I personally learned a lot, how to play with the tools, especially the keywords alerts. That's my new favorite tool. I think before it was the diluted one, but I think the keywords alerts, I already see so many ways I'm gonna use it.
Yeah, I'm gonna add this one as well since we mentioned it in the beginning, just so we can see what happens with Bill Ackman and everything that's going on. But
Good.
yeah,
Put your position next to it and the dollar amount and the share price so we can really monitor.
I think I bought at $72 a share.
Amazing.
Right.
I'm excited to see. But again, this is a more long-term play, right? Like even if the stock gonna go lower, I think on the long term, I'm also a big fan of Bill Ackman. So I think you're in a good shape, Paolo.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at it, 5 years from now. So
100%.
I'm being patient.
Don't listen to David here. He's gonna tell you to sell. Take your money and run.
I'm about to call the CEO of that grayscale company, of that hyperscale company right now, and see how I can become a shareholder.
I love it.
It's not a bad idea, but I mean, I think that kind of getting in at $7, I'm not sure how good of an idea it is.
I won't get in at 7.
Maybe just wait a little bit until it tanks, and then you get in.
Yeah,
guys, this was fun.
All right, guys. Thank you. Yeah, this was great.
I'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. Love that.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Just a quick reminder, the information in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purpose only. Nothing shared here should be considered financial or legal or investment advice. Please do your own research or consult a professional before making any financial decisions. Love you guys.